Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of WrestleZone, and today I am joined by your award-winning screenwriter, fitness model, former pro wrestler, and of course, your favorite comedian, Denise Winkelman. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. It's not often I get to do crossover interviews like this, talking comedy, fashion, and wrestling. So I must say, I'm super excited to chat today. And obviously, a lot of that comes together in your debut comedy special, Bougie on a Budget, which is premiering on August 19th on Amazon, YouTube, Apple TV, iTunes, Google Play, basically everywhere. So there's no excuse not to watch. So I am super excited about that. I've had the joy of watching some of it beforehand, and I must say it's absolutely hilarious. So thank you. I'm sure you're just as excited for it to release everywhere.
Oh, I'm so excited. And thank you for watching it. It was such a passion project. It took me a long time to get it up and going, but so excited with how it turned out. So excited to share it. It feels like it's finally coming together.
Right? I feel like a lot of people are going to enjoy it. There's a lot of mix of topics, which we'll talk about. But before we get into any of that, like I said, you have a lot of professional titles, screenwriter, model, wrestler, comedian, world traveler. But if you think back to young Denise, your younger self, what did she envision her older self doing as a career when she got older?
Well, she was a jack of all trades for sure. And so I want to say like this would be part of it, but honestly, I thought I was going to be a singer until I heard myself sing. I very much wanted to be Shania Twain, just so I could dance and show the tummy a little bit. But that would be part of it. As I grew up, it was always entertainment, though. I wanted to do a degree in like management, like music management kind of thing, and I went to a small college in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota, so that did not happen. Did not happen.
Well,
I set up for mass communications. That was my major.
I must say a lot of the work that you're doing ties into music. I feel like everything ties into music. In wrestling, you have your entrance theme, screenwriting, there's obviously maybe if it's film or television, depending, some music tied in there, and obviously comedy, a lot of celebrities are turning over to comedy too. So I feel like there's a lot of natural connection there.
Yeah, I think the industry is changing too, right? With streaming and all this stuff. So it's kind of like everybody's trying to figure it out, and we're all creative and we want to entertain people, but rather than waiting on an acting job and while the industry kind of figures it out, everybody's like, well, I've done improv, I've done this, I have this character. Let me go out and try stand up. And most of them, most of the entertainers figure out that it's pretty hard.
Yeah, well, you've definitely adjusted to comedy very well so far, which we'll talk about a bit later. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about your early work in professional wrestling, which you touch on in your special. At the age of 23, you moved to Kentucky and started training to become a professional wrestler. You were known as Dr. Melvin Winkelman, an over-the-top mad scientist. You didn't mention science in your maybe dream. So was science something you were always into, or how did this persona come to be? You go, no, it wasn't.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was terrible at science, actually. The way it came about, so I went to this wrestling training school. Uh, so it was the Northern Wrestling Federation with Roger
Yes.
Ruffin, produced so many really good wrestlers over the years, like Wildcat Chris Harris, the Monster Abyss, Karl Anderson from the Good Brothers and so many more. It's kind of a who's who of people in
Right.
that area have at least worked there. And I love the aspect of it. I learned a lot about Kentucky wrestling and how different it was just crossing the border from Kentucky to Ohio. It was interesting because, but I learned a lot about how to be a professional, about the entertainment business, how to be cool with people, and it taught me so much about life. But I moved there, wrestling was really hot, and it was actually Karl Anderson. At the time, he pulled me aside one day. He'd been there like a year longer, but he was really, really good at wrestling. And he pulls me aside one day and he's like, "Hey, Winkleman, like, can you just go pop the boys and do a promo as a mad scientist?" And so I did. It was promo class, and it stuck. I got, it stuck because I did it so well. And so originally it was Dr. Melvin Socrates, the first couple of shows I wrestled. And then they said, Dr. Melvin Winkelman, your real last name because it's creepy. And I was like, well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely giving a little bit of Dr. Isaac Yankem for those who aren't familiar with Kane. Kind of like, I mean, he was an over-the-top dentist, but it's very much like creepy mad scientist, or like physician vibes. And so that seems like it was a lot of fun. I know you said that you kind of hated it at first, but you leaned into it and made it your own. So what were some of your personal favorite character moments as Dr. Melvin Winkelman?
There was, thank God there wasn't that much YouTube back then.
Right.
There's not that much online. You have to really search for it. It's probably on the dark web somewhere. But no, it was so much fun. But I read Mankind's book or Mick Foley's book, and he talked about how he didn't really connect with the Mankind character, like it wasn't really him, but he found pieces that he related to. And so I always took it as a challenge. I was like, no matter what you give me, I'm going to take it and try to make it as good as I can. And I'm going to do my best at it. And so for me, Dr. Melvin, it was having this insecurity inside, and kind of like intensity because of it or not really connecting with other people. So I just kind of played the intense part really well. And then I would be really goofy. So I always loved the characters like DX, like when they were heels, they would really be cool and do one thing, but then they'd be really silly at points too. And I love that stuff. And so I would say really intense things, and but they would be really funny. Like I'd be like, whoever I was wrestling, Karl Anderson. He wasn't Karl Anderson at the time, but Karl Anderson, like you're all pretty. You look like a jock. You disgust me. I'm gonna give you a potion and turn you into a billy goat. So we would do things like that, and so we somebody whipped up a potion, which was Gatorade. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, but there would be Gatorade involved, and somebody gave me a bunch of science stuff, like a lab coat and stuff like that, and so carry it all out, and it'd be like smoking. And the first real feud I had with the NWF was it was with a group called the Hippies, and so it was me and Professor Medler, who I gave a title to, and we had this pretty valet, and we would. I blinded one of the hippies with the potion and threw it in his face, and which really annoyed the other guys who had to wrestle after us because there was potion all over the ring, and then so he was great, really great. Like we really bonded in that. But so it ended up being like a 3, 4 month feud, and we just hated each other. He was wearing an eye patch, and it led to we were tag champs. It led to a feud at their big show, WrestleBlast, and it was like 200 people in their hometown, and we had a street fight. And it was one of the funnest things for somebody who was fairly new to the wrestling business. So we really intense, like beat the crap out of each other. One of the big moments in that was he did the tarantula thing where he would hang upside down. And so he was doing it to my partner, and I got a kendo stick and just swung it like a baseball bat. And I hit him right here. And Karl Anderson was actually on commentary,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Dear God Almighty, I think Winkleman just killed him." And the whole crowd it wasn't like a pop. It wasn't like, dang. It was like, oh my God, he's dead.
That
And
sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. Like it's that beauty, it may be over the top, but wrestling's supposed to be this performance entertainment aspect, and it seems like you definitely brought that.
mhm. And I love the talking part of it. And I was always a really good talker. For years, my friends would introduce me as one of the best talkers they've seen. And so I could always talk smack with the best of them. There were so many other moments. So like we did a weird science experiment on one of the big New Year's shows, which we were doing a better body potion, and I said I was going to look like a jacked up Freddie Prinze Jr. At the time, but I was like, oh wait, I already look like that, so we need to give it to somebody else. So we turned like one of the security guards into a dog, kind of thing. So he was like running around the ring, and then had a blindfold match with one of their big champs at the time. Uh, I forget what he was going by at the time, but it was the American Eagle or Virus at the time, and so it was great, but a blindfold match. I had never been a part of that, but we made it funny. And then I won like a tri-state championship, and what had happened was our valet had moved to another wrestling promotion. She told her promoter that she was going back to school and she started wrestling for the competition. And so he was angry and he got some big fat guy to come out and play her. And I just would rave about how beautiful she was now and how much weight she lost. And um, it was a very mean thing in retrospect, but it was very funny. And yeah, and those were some of the big moments. There's so many other ones, but oh, I know the other one. It's been a long time. I got hit in the head a lot with chairs, so I apologize. I'm a little spacey, but
Oh,
no, the other one was uh, with that fat guy who was playing Crazy Courtney. He had me be obsessed with him and love, and we did a big weird science wedding where so I was marrying the new crazy Courtney, and then of course the dude who was obsessed with dudes, Bodacious, showed up and took her from me. And in retrospect, it was all good, but I was heartbroken at the time.
yeah. Wrestling weddings would not be wrestling weddings without the drama. Like I love a good wedding. Those are always super fun.
We put yeah, we would have been Macho Man, Miss Elizabeth for sure.
Absolutely. You mentioned also Karl Anderson, best man at your wedding. You lived with him at some point as well. So it seems that you two were really good friends. Tell us more about your friendship with Carl slash Chad, if you want to call him by his real name. Yeah.
Well, so I met him in '03, first day of wrestling school, first day I moved out there. At the time we lived in the same apartment complex, and then his roommate moved out, so I moved in with him, and I was like I was so chill at the time, so I was kind of quiet, and he was just out there talking all the time, and he had to entertain people no matter what. And it was a great relationship. And to be honest, I learned so much about how to be a professional from him, because the work he put in when nobody was watching, it just blew me away. Like he always worked the hardest in the gym. He was really the best wrestler in Cincinnati at the time, and he was having this great run. And he'd always be watching tape, and he'd always be, his workouts were really intense, and so we just kind of pushed each other, and it really prepared me for comedy in the sense of, okay, this is the work it takes to get to the next level. And he moved out in '06. He moved to LA, and the dude struggled for like 2 years in LA before he got Japan. And he was sleeping on floors, had no money. And he calls me up one day and he says he's going to move back. And I go, absolutely not. You're not moving back. And um, he he's he stuck it out. It wasn't me by any means, but and then he called me a couple months later and said, "Oh yeah, I got New Japan. I'm gonna go train over there and stuff like that." And he, his dad was one of our really good friends. He calls his dad and he's like, "Winkleman's not even excited." And I told him, I was like, "Yeah, I expected it. for the last 2 years. Like, what took you so long, you know? And so he was always really cool about that. So one of the best dudes, when I told him I was transitioning, nobody knew. And he was so cool about it. And all the wrestlers were, it really shocked me. But some of the coolest people I've ever met. And it's kind of one of those things like when you know people for a long time, it's like
Yeah.
you always have like little minor disagreements. It's like a family, but if anybody picks on one of your family, you're like, okay, let's go, man, let's go.
Square up. Yeah.
And so yeah, he was the best man in my wedding. He was it just happened to work out. He was back from Japan and just loved that dude to death.
Yeah, the friendships that you make are have been amazing. I'm so happy to hear. You obviously talk a little bit about it during your special about coming out to the your friends as wrestlers and all of that, in a little bit more comedic way. So you'll have to watch that to hear that story though. You obviously mentioned that there was a lot of great names coming through NWF at the time, also including a young Jon Moxley, who people now know as the former AEW World Champion. He's had a hell of a journey, I must say. Did you have any interactions with Moxley back then? And if so, tell us about him.
Yeah, so very limited. So we did this. So at the time it was an HWA and it was HWA and NWF. Like we didn't hate each other, but it wasn't like we were really tight. Like it was kind of WCW and WWF and for that region. And NWF had been in business for like 20 years. HWA had been around forever. There was a lot of developmental guys that had moved to Cincinnati during that time. So there was a few of those that kind of stuck around. So think of what NXT was, but just without the great facilities and the resources,
Yeah.
essentially, like a small training school, kind of independent promotion, small promotion, but they would, work with really great guys because who were under WWE contracts. So I know like Eddie Guerrero came through there, like all kinds of people went through that region. And when I had moved, they had just moved it to Louisville, so we didn't get exposure to as much, but we still got to meet a lot of really cool people. So Moxley had been training with the HWA, and the thing that shocked everybody was they didn't tell anybody because you could keep a secret back then. But Roger Ruffin and Chad, and I think it was Ryan Stone, one of the best wrestling names of all time. They showed up one night at an HWA event, and they snuck in and started an invasion angle. So big thing at one of their shows. They showed up in a couple NWF shows, and so it kind of became like a big war kind of thing. And it was really well done. And so that led to some big, like 200, like 200 people in the arena, two to 300. And they had a really great run. I think it was '05 that they were doing this. And so we definitely worked with Jon Moxley. I didn't personally work with him, but I remember talking to him, having conversations with him, and I couldn't understand anything he was saying. He was just like mumbling, right? And uh like he would turn away and I was very soft spoken as well, but I would look at my friends and be like, what the heck did he just say to me? Like I have no idea. And then like 2 years later he goes to Philly and he's like the best talker in the world.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things like it's interesting to see the guys off screen and sometimes they're vastly different, sometimes they're the same. I remember reading about Scott Hall back in the day, and that's what they said with Scott Hall is he was completely different off screen, like he was almost like slouched over, but when the camera came on, he could just turn it on.
Yeah.
And that was something like because I was very quiet, very insecure at the time, and now that was always the thing. It's like, well, when I'm on camera, when I'm out in front of people, I'm just gonna just crank it up.
Yeah, it's like a switch, for a lot of people, you switch into character. For some people, it's like them turned up to 1,000. For you, it was totally something different.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, you absolutely have to turn it on if you're going to be, an over the top scientist.
Oh
To
yeah.
create those moments. Obviously excluding a brief return in 2016, you largely wrapped up your wrestling career in 2008, went a different direction. Can you tell us more about your decision to give up your boots and where you went professionally and creatively after that? In between comedy, that's like it's about like 8 years in between where you really kicked off like comedy and modeling and all of that. What did you do during that time as well?
Well, I was always trying to find a creative outlet.
Yeah,
So the biggest thing was is I transitioned from male to female. So there was,
true.
and it wasn't something I just decided to do. It became more and more. I always knew I was trans. I mean, from 4 years old, I knew I was different. And it was always like inside of me, but I built this wall around. So I really like overcompensated, trying to be very over the top masculine and stuff like that. So at the time, my day job was financial advice. So I was working as a financial advisor. I was working in with a large company, and I accepted an opportunity in 2012, 2013 to move from Cincinnati to Denver. And when I moved, that's when I transitioned. And so the next few years, so the first couple years after that was just kind of figuring that out and kind of I'm very much a planner. I always believe one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten was have high aspirations and low expectations. So, pick a stretch goal, try to make it attainable, but then just work like crazy to get there. And I was so proud of the work I had done in wrestling, where, because I wasn't, I did sports and, I played a year of college basketball, but I always thought wrestling was just like, you see them on TV, like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and, like all the dudes that are just like jacked up or the things they can do. I never thought I could do that. And so to hang with, all the great wrestlers in Cincinnati and Kentucky at the time, and there were some really good ones that went on to have really good success. Kelly Klein, who had good success in Ring of Honor.
Yep.
Um, she was valeting for somebody that I wrestled matches with at the time, and Pepper Parks, who is now the Blade and Butcher and the Blade, and so many other ones who went on to have runs other places. But being able to do that, I was very proud of that time. I loved the aspect of talking smack to people, but uh, I was looking for something creatively. So I thought I would wrestle after I transitioned. So I tried that for 6 months, just hurt too much in my 30s to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I had always been funny, and I had always had people in high school tell me I could do stand up and stuff. And I was like, no, those guys are too funny. Those guys are too funny. And so my first, there was a gender center in Denver, 2017, I believe it was. They were doing a fundraiser and they gave me 8 minutes in front of 300 people, and I had never done a mic, anything like that. And I mean, I worked really hard on the set. I shook the mic and all that stuff, but it it was like it was awesome, and I got enough laughs where I just fell in love with it. I was like, no, this is it, this is it. But in between, I did a lot of work with the company I was at, with trans benefits. Uh, I was the first person in a company of 40,000 to transition. So it kind of put me in a spotlighted position where everybody was really cool. They put a focal point on being really cool and really inclusive. And we passed some improvements to trans healthcare at the time. And I was like, well, at least I left the company better than I found it. But during that time, it was kind of figuring it out, and a lot of advocacy at that time. I'm up here. I can't even say the word now. Like
It's
it's
all
just like
good.
But yeah, yeah, so that was kind of the in between. Also, there were a ton of happy hours and brunches in Denver too.
You know, you got to get those drinks, absolutely. What, especially for your first time, you said in front of a few hundred people for your first time. I mean that's just jumping right in the deep end. I guess sometimes you just got to do that. And now it's like if I can do that on my first try, like you got this, Denise, you know? Um yeah. You mentioned obviously inclusivity. You know, you mentioned when you came out to the guy, your friends in wrestling, they were very open. Comedy has been evolving. How has your experience been in regards to inclusivity in your other ventures like comedy, modeling, and like any of the other activities you've been doing since then?
Well, it's been a little definitely up and down. Like you
Yeah.
get really cool people. So if we just think of the time frame, like 2017, it was coming off the Caitlyn Jenner stuff where it really put a spotlight on the trans community, but everybody was really cool. In Denver, everybody I met was really awesome in that scene. And then LA, I moved to LA in 2020. 2 weeks later, everything shut down. The
Oh
world
my
shut.
God.
It turned out to be the worst time to move, but I was in love with not the Rogan podcast necessarily, but the like I love Bert Kreischer and I love the comedian interviews because they would talk the business of comedy. And I learned so much from listening to those comedians talk about that. And I was like, man, I want to work at the store. I want to do all this. And I thought it was like the coolest thing. And when I moved to LA, there's it's so big, the scene, and so there are so many pockets of people, but I ended up doing Zoom comedy a lot for the next 2 years. And so I met that fan, and virtually who won Last Comic Standing. He was running all these Zoom shows, and then eventually he opened a studio in his house, and we were doing a ton of that. And I learned a lot from those guys, but they were so inclusive, like, and so cool that you kind of get spoiled a little bit. And you still run, I feel like I still run into people that will say really inappropriate things. They'll still, they're almost like worried if they're going to say the wrong thing. And so, I try to take ownership of that, make it okay. But uh, it's definitely hit or miss. I feel like LA spoils us a little bit. But definitely, so coming out of the pandemic, when the store was opening back up, I did a lot of roast battles, and really enjoyed that environment. That's a really creative space and really cool. First time I did a roast battle was at the Comedy Store with Jeff Ross was the judge. It was the main room of the store. It was really cool. Adam Ray was a judge at that one. And I was battling like this friend of mine, and he was a dude, so I felt comfortable ripping him. And my last thing that I said to him was, "You remind me of a feminine version of my before picture, except if I would have looked like you, I wouldn't have transitioned. I would have killed myself."
Oh my God.
And of course, roast battles, they want you to be edgy. So
Yeah.
everybody went nuts and people were like high-fiving each other and stuff. So it was really fun. And when the Chappelle stuff hit, and it was right after that, it was like literally a few months, and the Chappelle stuff hit, at least at the time, the whole energy of the room changed and it got really awkward where people were then afraid to talk to me or, because it was kind of like, we love Chappelle and we back Chappelle, but because he's done everything in LA but then, yeah, okay, so I guess it felt really weird. So then I was like, I need to take some space and get, kind of get out of that scene because it was becoming, I don't know the best way to put it, but like it just felt like creatively it wasn't going to be a good thing, and I was going to deal with a lot of crap. Um, so I haven't pursued the roast battles that much, but really enjoyed them at the time. But I feel like now audiences have shifted even in LA with some of the stuff politically going on.
Yeah.
Definitely outside the gun, outside of LA as well. 2020, 2021, 22. It was like I'd say I was trans and people would applaud, and now it's like, ooh, are we allowed to laugh at this? Kind of thing. And so it's kind of balancing and reworking, but everything changes in life and you have to adapt or die.
That's a good motto. You know, times are always changing, even every single day. Even just in the comedy world itself, you know, there's been certain topics that have been like hit or miss, or like you mentioned, kind of people like maybe on edge, like should we laugh at that? Should we not? You know, I can imagine it's kind of a tightrope to walk, but I found a lot of your content in Bougie on a Budget to be really, I mean, obviously there's the mix of humor in there, but you obviously bougie on a budget. You say that you use budget loosely though, because you sometimes give in, as we all do though. So like I don't blame you. But tell us more about your personal fashion sense and style since we're on that topic.
I'm all about like, hey, let's find stuff that works for you and make it look good. And let's do it as not as cheap as possible. Like, I feel like there's a middle ground, like
Yeah.
the Nordstrom Rack kind of thing, where it's like, oh, this is on discount. So let's find something good that works for you and then make it work. So one thing I've done recently is I love these shirts that I'm wearing. And Fashion Nova had them like black and
Love
white,
Fashion
right?
Nova.
And I bought like 12 of each. So now I look like I only have one shirt. And I wear them all the time on stage. And it's like, no, I really have 12 of these, but I just really like them. And they were all like $7, like on clearance and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep them. So,
As you
but
should. I love Fashion Nova too, just in general. Always great sales on there, by the way.
yeah, and now I buy everything online. Everything I do is online, but you can find so many great apps and like Fashion Nova is cool. I bought like True Religion stuff like recently because I think I'm a child. Like I'm going through puberty right now and ever I do a joke on stage now where I just every time I walk out of the house I want to be doused in glitter and show as much skin as I possibly can. I bought booty shorts for the first time ever last year. So those tight little shorts that
Yeah.
say see on the butt. I bought them from True Religion. They were great. But last year I was getting, and I'm in my 40s. If you ask my age, I'm 29. But one of those things where I walked outside and I was walking my dog and every time I walked outside, I was getting hit on by like a 25-year-old dude with like $100,000 car. And number one, how did they get that car? I'm so confused. And will they be my financial advisor? And but they were it was really my cat call shorts. And I was like, ooh, I like that. So uh, but there are certain things I like and looking for deals like clearance apps and stuff. But I am not the person that will go to. I don't even go to stores anymore because it's too chaotic for me. Like I'll spend just as much time looking through an app, but I'm like, ooh, that looks like I'll try it. So
Honestly, same. Like online shopping is my addiction. It's really bad. Like I will rarely leave the house to go shopping in person. It's so much more comfortable. You just scroll in there. You can, but then you get down a rabbit hole. I'm sure you can imagine. Then you have like 12 things added to your cart and you're like, how did I get here?
Exactly. And then it's like, which one do I really want? And then
Yeah.
you're going through, and then is it on another app? And then you start comparing. It can take your day away. But no, I love that. And with anything shopping wise and stuff, like I can power shop. I used to go into Nordstrom Rack. I'd be like, when I was wearing like more professional dress, when I couldn't just wear hoodies and t-shirts everywhere I went. But yeah, Nordstrom Rack, and I would just like power shop. In like 10 minutes, I'd be like, I got 20 things that I need to buy. So no, that was really fun, and I definitely enjoy the shopping part of it. Um, I totally lost my train of thought. My mind works like this, where I was going to go somewhere else, and it was all connected. So I'll think of it here in a second. So not
It's
enough
all
thought.
good. It's all good. It kind of just encapsulates like your personal fashion style, and tying it into your special. Couple more questions for you, since we're
Yeah.
talking about fashion, what are some fashion trends you'd like to see come back? And conversely, maybe what are some you hope to never see again?
Well, definitely skinny jeans need to come back. Not for guys, but for just in
Agree.
general. That my favorite look is boots. So like the big calf boots with skinny jeans, like the
Yeah.
jeans with the all the glitter on the butt, and I that tends to be a trend. And then just like tight tops, like tight black tops and stuff. Love that. Do not need mom jeans at all. We can get rid of that. Like let's burn that all together. Anything polyester, anything from the 1970s or 80s, we can get rid of. I apologize to all the hipsters out there, but I am done. We're not doing that. And I don't know, like I'm very big on glitter, anything flashy, like even kind of classy. So I talk about it in the special, but I am done with cash. I waited too long to be able to wear really cute, slutty things
Hmm.
to not be able to be or to have to be casual. Like I can't even find a sexy bra now. Like Google it sometimes, sexy bra, and it comes up with just, basic, like no underwire, nothing. It was like, for the good of everybody, can we just have sexy things?
Hmm. I agree.
Well,
I
I
mean,
lost you on that, so but
you have to like it's very niche now, we've gone I will admit I'm a little bit more casual, but sometimes you want to be like sexy, or in your words slutty, like you need more. I agree with that.
And I'm not saying like we always have to do it, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
uh, I'm done going to brunch and my friends show up in yoga pants. Like even Lulu's, like that's not a brunch outfit. Like that's not a good outfit. Like wear, at least wear jeans or a dress or so, and you can do whatever you want. But I hate showing up to a place like, hey, we're going out, we're doing this,
Yeah.
and I look like a common street whore.
You know what? You embrace it though, all the glitter, all the sexiness. Speaking of embracing things, I love what you call your fans. You call them the hussies. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a current wrestler, ROH Women's Champion Athena, who likes to call her opponents hussies, as if it's like a bad thing though. But you seem to embrace the term. So what does hussy power mean to you?
I love the hussies. So I always do stuff and I just try to have fun with people. Like I love coming out and be like, hey, where the gays at, where the straights at, where the hussies at, and sometimes you get really good response. But I call myself a hussy a lot, and I'm like,
Hmm.
we are bringing that back. We are embracing that. So it's kind of like the slut movement, like, oh, we're gonna empower that word.
Hmm.
I think we should empower the word hussy because if you look up the definition, it's like an immoral, exotic woman who
Yeah.
says inappropriate things, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me, that's me, and I love it in the Team Hussy movement in a couple things. One is, it's kind of like my version of the NWO, like, hey, we're gonna do something kind of cool, and kind of embrace that word, but it's also like Team Hussy supports me, so I love that. Also, my lesbian fans love it too because they get to wear the t-shirts and kind of advertise and promote it a little
Hmm.
bit. And we did this like cool thing on the back of these shirts where it was kind of like a ransom note font, like in pink. And I just love it. I love that side of it. It's like, yeah, we should, really the theme of the special, it's Bougie on a Budget is the title, but the real theme is be yourself. be authentic. And that's what hussy is. Like, be yourself, be proud, embrace your inner hussy.
I mean, absolutely. You kind of goes to your previous thing about wanting to be a little bit more, sexy. Bring it, don't be afraid, embrace it.
Yes.
Um Absolutely. Two more questions for you. We mentioned wrestling fans know that because Athena uses it a lot, more so in a bad way, but obviously you embrace it. You've been out of the wrestling game for a hot minute now. Do you still keep up though with the current product or any promotions nowadays? I'm so curious.
So I did, well, I had a break. I think it was 2015, 2016. I got really kind of back into it when Karl Anderson came back to the States
Yeah.
and seeing some of the success my friends were having. So I tried to follow it and keep up with it there. There's honestly so much right now. It's like comedy. And so 2016 to, 21, 22. I was really into it. And when they left WWE the first time, I started to get out of it, but I loved the women's revolution and what was going on there. I love Becky Lynch and the man stuff. And it was so much fun to watch. Like she was by far like I think she's my favorite wrestler like I've ever watched. And like I love the journey of wrestling. I love listening to like Edge and Christian on podcasts, talking about Canada and talking about the death tours. And Lance Storm was another one who was very open about behind the scenes in the business back in the day and some of the stuff they did. And then, Jericho and people like that, like the podcast and seeing them leave WWE and do really well, outside of it, but like really embrace that creative space. I love that and really love people who kind of make their own success and figure out ways to fulfill themselves creatively. And so I've always been inspired by that. I don't keep up with it as much now because comedy
You're a
really
busy woman. Yeah.
it really kind of, I think as you move up in levels in anything, I was telling somebody the other day, it's like I'm on my phone 8 hours a day, like, just, social media, doing all this stuff, and then trying to keep up with comedy and doing sets. It's like a full-time gig. And so I love it, want to get back into it, but I think there's so much content out there. It's really hard to sort through with both comedy and sports. It's hard to kind of find the stuff that you really love. But so there's a sorting process as well. So I want to get back into it, but just don't have the time right now.
Well, I will tell you some good news. Becky Lynch is currently a champion once again. There's a mid card title called the Women's Intercontinental Championship for WWE. They finally have the U.S. and Intercontinental title for the women, so she is currently that for the women. So she's currently on top of the game. She's killing it, by the way, as always. Her fashion game is also on point, as always. So we love her. Final question like we mentioned, Bougie in a Budget is coming out very soon. What else can viewers expect to see and or hear in your comedy special that you can tell us about?
Sure, sure. Well, let me do one other shout out before I do that question because I'm seeing one of my friends, Big Mama, have success in the NWA.
Yes.
And the craziest thing, like I was there on our first day of training, and Roger let me train her the first day, and so I'm going to take credit for all of her success because I was involved. So
I talked to her a couple months ago, former NWA Women's Television and Tag Team Champion. Absolutely.
love that girl. So big shout out to her. And then, yeah, so the special, love the special. Really, it's a lot of stories about growing up in a small town, conservative family. Try to make it really funny. We talk about garage sales, fashion, garage sale fashion. My grandma, doing a bandage and like the small town remedies kind of thing. And then just blending current day, right? Kind of what's going on current day. dating, Los Angeles, being trans, date the ladies. And I just love to go to therapy is really what it comes down to. But we try to make it really, really funny, really topical, really inclusive for everybody. So there's stuff for everyone. A lot of it's really silly. And then, but blended with authentic. And so really proud of how that came out too.
I will say, I believe it's also the first time I've heard the term swamp donkey.
Yeah.
Um, so if I, you'll learn more about it if you watch it. That was a funny part. Was not expecting it to go there. That was a fun bit though.
Oh my,
Um,
one of my wrestling buddies, my
yeah.
wrestling buddies gave people nicknames for everything at the time. And I was like, I can't believe I'm witnessing this and I'm a part of it, but I love it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of cool content in there. And obviously that's going to be coming out August 19th on Amazon, YouTube, Apple, iTunes, Vimeo, Google, basically everywhere. But
Everywhere except Pornhub.
maybe
Maybe.
maybe.
That's a different special though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll see. And obviously, we wish you the best of luck in this. I'm excited for the world to see it. But before we let you go, Denise, please let the listeners know where they can find you online and support you.
Denise Winkelman comedy. So go to my website, sign up, become a hussy, be a hussy, embrace your inner hussy, buy a t-shirt, and then Denise Winkelman comedy on everything except Twitter X. It's D Winks comedy, but YouTube, so, TikTok, Instagram, all of that stuff. Denise Winkelman comedy.
Pretty simple. Denise is hilarious. I can't wait for you all to get to watch what I already saw. It's a lot of mix of some funny stuff, some dark stuff in there, but it's definitely raw and authentic, which like you said is kind of the theme of this, embracing your inner self. And you've definitely had a unique journey, Denise. So I'm excited to see the world get to hear a lot of that. Thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, it has. Thanks so much for having me. This was a blast.